We're good to go.
We're recording.
Alrighty.
All right. Can I get you to say and spell your name for me?
My name is Keelin Darby, Keelin Darby.
All right. Okay, so the Alabama Court of Appeals overturned the conviction of William Ben Darby, your husband. How'd that make you feel hearing the news?
We were overjoyed. I found out Friday morning while I was at work, and I just filled with excitement and waited for Ben to call me. He called me about 10 minutes after I found out, and the phone's finally connected because there's a delay. And he said, hey, he's like, well, hello, and I knew he knew. And I said, babe, we won the appeal, and they overturned your conviction. So we've talked about it a few times since Friday, obviously, and we're just both very excited and thankful that the Court of Criminal Appeals has seen this the way it has, and that they've set the precedent for law enforcement from here on out in the future.
Absolutely. Let's tweak something real quick. So I imagine that was one happy phone call.
It was very, very happy phone call. We've spoken several times since then, not going into details about the case, but when I see him on Sunday for visitation, it'll be all that the visitation is about, I'm sure.
Nice. Now, it wasn't too long ago, a couple months ago, you and I were talking, and you said there's a very, very slim chance something like this ever even goes to the, Alabama Court of Appeals and gets overturned. So it must be monumental for you guys.
Yeah. So back in November, we had the oral arguments, and every case that gets appealed wants to have oral arguments heard in their case, and the percentage I've been told was 2% of cases actually get oral arguments, and then 1% of those cases get heard publicly, and we got both of those. So the court had that hearing back in November, and we've been waiting for them to come back with their decision, which they did Friday. Obviously, we're excited because it was in our favor, which it should have been. Ben never should have been charged. He never should have been convicted. He followed his training as a police officer the same way that A-Post is still training police officers right now to every rookie in the academy.
So after hearing what you guys had to present, and, again, you got the 1-2 punch, you got to present, and it was overturned.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they heard this time that made them go, we'll overturn this?
So looking at their brief, their opinion, it was 62 pages long, and the tooth I think that we got with them was the improper jury instructions that were given to the original trial jury. The trial jury wasn't allowed to know that Ben was trained a certain way. They weren't allowed to know that he was a trained police officer, or even that he was cleared, from the initial investigation. This case is precedent now, like I said, for law enforcement in Alabama and nationwide, in the sense that you have to look at an officer's use of force that another police officer would use with the same training, not Joe Smith, who is a plumber and has no idea how to deal with a police incident.
Sure. Now, speaking of evidence, we spoke to the DA, and he said, the same evidence is, if it goes to trial again, will still be prevented, and evidence that convicted him in the first place. So how would a new trial be different?
Well, the judge is going to be instructed differently. She's going to have to do certain things that she didn't allow this last time. So she'll have to follow those instructions, and one of those being the jury has to be properly instructed on a police officer's training, which again, Ben's original jury trial, that didn't happen. So we're ready for that, and we're hopeful for it to come out on our side.
So the first trial was kind of flawed in that sense?
Absolutely, absolutely flawed. Again, I wasn't allowed to go there. It was closed to the public. You yourself or any other news media person wasn't allowed to be present during the trial. And we saw that during that time, while we watched the feed, it would get cut. So we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what was going on inside in that courtroom, and only those people present in that courtroom did. Multiple witnesses weren't allowed to testify. That's exculpatory evidence that would and does clear Ben of the incident, and the jury wasn't allowed to hear that. And then again, the jury instruction, they were improperly instructed. If they would have heard Graham versus Connor and Montoute versus Carr and several other case law that sets the precedent for police officers and their use of force, he would have never been convicted.
Now, I did speak to Parker's family attorney. He told me this is a case of justice delayed, not served.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys see it the same way on your end?
I see it as it's another opportunity for us to show North Alabama what actually happened, because they weren't told the full story in the first place. I don't have a comment for
So the city of Huntsville, they released a statement in support, and so did the FOP.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that make you guys feel?
Obviously, we were excited. You know, they've had our back since day one. The city of Huntsville has had Ben's back since day one, as well as the FOP, state and nationally. I just spoke with at the state conference last week in Auburn, and was greeted with open arms by all the state and national members that were there. And they said, you know, we're going to be with you until this is over with, and until he's home and this is done, we stand with you. And that's something that we take pride in. But it also lets law enforcement know that when you're doing your job the way you're trained, the people that matter are going to back you. And that's exactly what the city of Huntsville did for Ben, and then the state and national FOP.
Anything you think I missed or you'd like to add?
We're not out of the woods yet. You know, a lot of people are asking me, well, what's the next steps? We're still learning, but we're not where we were Thursday. You know, we have a renewed sense of hope. This is something that we've prayed for the last 19 months, and it's finally come through, and we're excited about the next steps that we have.
Does it feel as heavy anymore?
It's still heavy for sure, because it's not over with yet. But it is a little bit lighter. The burden is a little bit lighter, but we both know that we still have a long way to go.
I mean, truly, because I am asking, what are the next steps? Say it doesn't go back to trial.
Right, so what I've been told is we're waiting on the Attorney General, Steve Marshall, to issue his opinion on the court's decision. All 5 justices from the appellate court unanimously overturned his conviction and remanded it back to trial. So the Attorney General will issue his opinion as to that decision made by the court, and then we go from there. If he wants to try it, he can try it from what I've been told. If he doesn't, it'll go back to Madison County, which they've already stated that they want to play ball again, and we're ready to do that.
All right. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.